Hey there, this is DIY Life Guide coming at you. Today I'm going to show you the top 6 problems that I've had with my e-bike, things that have broken over time, which is gonna happen. Mine bike is sort of Frankensteined together. It's like a conglomeration of different parts and kits and stuff like that. It's not a store-bought e-bike. So whenever you make something like this and you put together something that is custom and you have to design it yourself, there's always going to be problems. It's going to be a trial and error process to really learn the best setup for the components that you have.
The first problem I had with my e-bike was with the battery terminals shorting out. Originally, there was 4-prong or 5-prong battery terminal right there, and it slid into the battery holder on the bike, and the terminal was made out of cheap iron tabs. It wasn't really all that high quality, and the voltage of this, I mean, this is a 52 volt battery, so just it wasn't really, the tabs weren't designed for this amount of voltage. So I'm going to take this apart. I'm going to show you what I did with it. This is the inside of it right here. My solution was that I had to connect, this is what they call an XT90 pigtail, if you can see that right there, and this is a gold tipped terminal that is designed for way higher voltages than the iron tabs that were in here. And what I did is I took this part out, I unsoldered it from back here. This is where it came in right here. This wire, this red wire right here, was attached to that terminal right there. And what I did is I unsoldered it and then I resoldered this XT90 pigtail onto this wire. And the reason that I had to cut a hole in the side of this to have the pigtail come through to attach to the other pigtail that was connecting to the bike is because I needed to have sliding function of the battery. This slides right onto the battery holder of the bike. So it made sense to drill a hole in the side of the battery and have this XT90 pigtail come out the side of the battery. And then this plugs right into the battery holder. So there's another XT90 there and they plug into each other.
All right, so the second problem that I had with my DIY e-bike was the controller.
So this is the arrangement of the whole bike here, and I have the controller out
on a rear rack right here. Here's all the wires. They run into the battery and into the motor down here. But this component right here is sort of the brain of the bike, and biggest problem is because it's electronics, it is susceptible to short-circuiting, overheating, frying, etc. Also, it can get jostled and that can cause things to short circuit as well, with the bike going over bumps and things like that. Even with the shocks, you're gonna have some jolts back here. So now you can try to take this thing apart. As you can see on the side, there's little screws to take this thing apart and really see what's in there. But the controller fries out, you're gonna know. It's gonna smell like sort of a burnt popcorn smell. So really there's not much you can do once that happens. You have to replace whole component, this whole controller, which I would recommend getting a controller that is compatible with your engine. Don't get just a random controller online because they probably won't match up on the wiring. So it's really important to get a controller that lines up with your specific engine. Originally, I had the controller stashed away in this middle area right here. This battery was not here, and there was actually like a little case that I had the controller in. The problem with that was the controller would overheat because it was in the case and it didn't have really anywhere to ventilate. This is attached to this metal part, and this metal acts as like a heat sink to suck heat out of here. And just the fact that it's outside and it's catching wind and it's on this metal part as a heatsink that keeps it cooler. I would recommend keeping the controller outside of any bag or anything like that, and have it on something that is going to have some type of shocking system, even with this shock right here. The third problem that I had with my e-bike was originally this component right here. This is called a torque arm. This was not here, and this bolt right here was just the only thing that was keeping the engine attached to this frame right here. The problem is that since the bike goes so fast, way faster than a normal bike, this will have a tendency to unscrew over time. And if you're going really fast and this comes off, or one of them comes off, or both of them comes off, and somehow your wheel gets disattached from the frame of the actual bike itself, you're gonna have some serious problems. The solution is this jammy right here. So this is a torque arm, and the idea of this is it's a second set of protection to hold the wheel onto the frame of the bike. And as you can see, you've got a little, like a crimp tie right here that you can tighten, and it holds this metal part in place. This is around the frame of the bike. It attaches to this piece right here, and then you have another part right here. Here, I'll take off the bolt. This part actually slides onto the post of the bike. All one piece that's holding the wheel onto the frame of the bike. And then obviously, since there's not as much pressure on this nut, it won't fall off anymore. It won't have as much pressure. It's a quick fix for that problem. Costs not all that much money online to buy a set of these torque arms. So number 4 problem that I had with my e-bike was the throttle system broke. Originally I had a twist throttle on this handlebar, which was sort of cheap, made of plastic. It came with the Voilamart kit. Over time, the handle just completely broke off. The problem I had was this broke, and I fixed it by adding one of these. This is a thumb throttle. I personally like a lot more than a twist throttle. I don't know, it just seems safer. Also just more control. The handlebar, stationary, so it's like more safe, and then you just use your thumb to push this down. Stuff like that's gonna fry out over time. Really, the only thing you can do is replace it, and I would recommend a thumb throttle. Here is the 5th most common problem I've had with my e-bike is wires overheating, melting, and shorting out. As you can see, this is the controller right here. All of the wires come out of the controller and run to the various components in the bike, whether it be the battery, the motor, the pedal assist, or the throttle. The 3 that get the hottest are these 3 wires right here. These are called the phase wires, and these run directly to the motor itself. And originally this came in like a plastic receptacle that had all 3 of these wires together and bolted down, but that plastic receptacle melted, which caused the wires to short. What I did is I got rid of that the plastic part, and I took the wires and I just directly soldered the wire from the controller to the wire to the engine, and then I just wrapped it in electrical tape like this, and I did that for all 3 of the phase wires. The advantage of this is that the wires are out in the open, and they're able to get air to run across them to cool them down when the bike is running, and that keeps the wires cool. Also, because they're not all bundled together in the same receptacle, I'm able to give them a little more space, and I've wrapped these in pretty generous electrical tape. These other wires have less voltage. They run to the various components. I haven't had too many issues with these other wires, so I wouldn't worry too much about these other ones. But yeah, these 3 right here have shorted out a couple times. The 6th problem that I had was that I had messed up the arrangement of all these components on the bike, and my battery holder actually broke, which resulted in my battery falling on the ground. If you see on the back side of this right here, you can see that this is snapped right off. This used to be a longer rear rack that I had this battery resting on this rear rack. And then I originally had this controller sitting in the middle part right there in the bag. What I soon realized is that because the battery is so heavy, anytime you go over a bump or anything like that, it's going to cause damage to this. It held up for a while, but this is just aluminum. This is not very strong. Any of these rear racks that you're going to buy are not like super strong. So if you have your battery placed back here, it's going to break. Really, the only option for batteries is to have the battery attached directly to the frame of the bike. All right, so now I've taken the battery off, and this is the underside of the battery. As you can see, it slides in onto this component right here. And here's what it looks like underneath. So this part right here screws in to the 2 holes for the water bottle holder. This part right here didn't have holes that lined up with the water bottle holes, and I had to drill. You can see it right here. I've put a bunch of glue on there and some bolts, but I had to drill a hole in this actual metal part right here to get it to line up.